G'day, it's Gary here from Grace Faith Christian Discipleship. Talking heads. On this occasion, there's only one head, that's me. And I'm talking about faith. Now, I want to go to the book of Mark. You might like to read along with me, Mark chapter 5, and we'll read from verse 21. Now, as we read down, you'll notice that there's people, what the Bible describes as thronging around Jesus. In other words, there's a big crowd, and he's actually got two people in need of healing, and there's two events. Like, he starts with one guy, and then a woman intervenes, and then he has to come back to the other guy. So just pay attention to the focus here is the faith of the people involved, and Jesus' interaction with them, what he says to them, and because we're trying to get an insight into faith by having a look at what Jesus says and what these people say. So Mark chapter 5, reading from verse 21. Now when Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, a great multitude gathered to him, and he was by the sea. Verse 22, and behold, one of the rulers of the synagogue came, Jairus by name, and when he saw him, he fell down at his feet, verse 23, and begged him earnestly, saying, My little daughter lies at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her. So that was Jairus's point of contact. He wanted Jesus to come and lay hands on her, that she may be healed and she will live. So he's making a statement of faith there. Verse 24, so Jesus went with him, and a great multitude followed him and thronged him. And here's where the woman intervenes. So Jairus is taking Jesus, or going with Jesus, to his daughter, in some haste, I should say, and this woman intervenes and slows the whole process down. Verse 25, now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 20 years, and had suffered many things from many physicians, and she had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. Verse 28. For she said, if only I may touch his clothes, so this is her point of contact, I shall be made well, a statement of faith. Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. Verse 30. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him. So as that virtue, that healing virtue flowed out of him, he was aware of it. He turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my clothes? Verse 31, but his disciples said to him, you see the multitude thronging you, and you say, who touched me? Verse 32, and he looked around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him. The reason that she was fearing and trembling was that she was unclean, and she shouldn't have been where she was, and she could have been punished for what she had done. So she was, verse 33, but the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. Verse 34, and he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. Verse 35, while he was still speaking, some came from the ruler of the synagogue's house. Remember the guy? He was on his way to the ruler's house to heal his child? Verse 35, while he was still speaking, some came from the ruler of the synagogue's house who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" As soon as Jesus heard the words that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not be afraid, only believe." Take notice of this. He said, "Do not be afraid, only believe." He didn't say, "Have great faith." He said, "Only believe." And he permitted no one to come with him except Peter, James and John, the brother of James. And he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and saw a tumult, and those who wept and wailed loudly. Verse 39, when he came in, he said to them, "Why make this commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." Verse 40, and they ridiculed him. But when he had put them all outside, why did he put them all outside? Because they were full of unbelief. Unbelief stops the power of God. You've got to get rid of unbelief. You've got to have an absence of unbelief. It's not a matter of having mighty faith or great faith. God can work with any level of faith. But you must have that unbelief gone, absolutely gone. Let me get focused on this. Verse 40, I'll read from verse 40 again. And they ridiculed him, but when he had put them all outside, those with unbelief that were ridiculing him, he took the father and mother of the child and those who were with him and entered where the child was lying. Then he took the child by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cumi," which is translated, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." Immediately the girl arose and walked, for she was 12 years of age, and they were overcome with great amazement. But he commanded them strictly that no one should know it, and said that something should be given to her to eat. So I hope you've got some insight into faith out of this reading of the Word of God. For me, I think it provides great insight. Read the verses for yourself and meditate upon them. God bless you for now. Bye.